let the world know the truth. Expose the lies, study the bloodlines, the Aboriginal fiends, let the world know the truth. Expose the lies, study the bloodlines, the Aboriginal tribe before the Spanish, Dutch, and the British arrived. Saying we was from Africa, stole a birthright. That's triple, something that a dirty war would do. Claiming nationality of the land, you get screwed. So we studied your background, the treaties you wrote. It's history. We ain't go up here on no boat. Frontin' like you indigenous to the land. You disgust me. The tomahawk back in our hands is getting ugly. You running around screaming black power. Cause sales to the truth. Rivers filled with a bull and high hills. Native Americans but hurt. Can't tell cause they know damn well the trail of tears ain't real. Respect the Aborigine. This land is all you know. You all. You still a guest, motherfucker. I have one little, two little, three little Indian grandmas for society. Keep killing them, telling me, I have one little, two little, three little Indian grandmas for society. Keep killing them, telling me, house nigga, real nigga, fake nigga, feel nigga. My skin ain't black, what the deal, nigga? Salute on my real shit, it's Aborigines, owners of the land and every goddamn tree and every goddamn sea. Invaders ever cross, step foot on the land and you can step the fuck off. Breathe, you gon' make us swing the sacred tomahawk. Fucking around with us with that black constant. Fake pics of slave ships, that's the reference. If we African, you gon' need more evidence. I'm American, Aboriginal, Indigenous, Djibouti DNA test. That shit is rhetoric. Stay woke, Aboriginal, get out. Your civil rights acts, all you can eat, big out. It's Stockholm syndrome, mix gets out. Phoenix Moon got the antidote, get that shit out. Meanwhile, rapping about my birthright, fuck a freestyle. Each man, each woman, each child. Black race is really Indians indeed now. Man, they indeed now. Holly Dog, Title 18, G goes. Pilgrims get big gold, but Phoenix and Beast Mode. Bring them up big woes out of the sleep. Oh, we ain't black, colors Africans or Negroes. I got one little, two little, three little Indian grandmas for society. Killing them, telling me. I have one little, two little, three little Indian grandmas for society. Killing them, telling me.
Osio, Halito, Sego, Kamawengapo. What's happening, beautiful ones? It is the 55th anniversary of Indian civil rights, and guess what? It's also Gator's birthday. Urban Indian Heritage Society in the building today. We're going to do something a little different. Well, because we all here. The gang's all here, and I'm pretty sure the rest of them will be pulling up soon. So we mobbing how we mobbing. What's up, family? What's good with y'all?
Hey, Halito.
Halito. Happy birthday,
Come on, Wingapo, everybody.
Come on, Wingapo.
Osio.
Calato, everyone.
Everybody give Gator a big old shout out. Pull up, say happy
birthday, Gator.
Happy birthday to ya.
Come on.
Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Gator.
Thank you, y'all. Love y'all
Yes,
so
indeed.
much. To the moon and back.
We love you.
We love you.
We love you to life.
And to all the April babies, this is such a special month. Happy birthday to all of our beautiful April, wonderful Aries women.
Aries, right? We was out here deep. Yes, we were.
Happy birthday to all of you beautiful ladies.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Hey, Cousin Ish.
Peace, everybody. How you doing? Happy born day. Love you, sis. So proud of you.
Thank you, Ish.
The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ish. Hello, cousin.
Peace and love, cousin.
Hey,
So good
Mr.
to see
Ish.
you. Peace, family. Peace.
Hey, cousin Ish.
Peace, Steve, man. Love you.
Yes, it's a beautiful
We
day
love
in
you
Indian
too.
country. We love you too. We sure do. It's a beautiful day in Indian country. 55 years of the Civil Rights Act, Indian civil rights. And you know, it's completely appropriate for me, for us, you know. I think it's about, I don't know, maybe 7 years, 8 years ago. You know, I went viral off of speaking. It was an argument actually from Final Battle. Cousin Ish, I even think you was you was around in that battle with Jamie Sandoval and them a long, long time ago. And that was the spinoff. And I did that after I got blocked from Facebook for like, I don't know, 7 days, 30 days or something like that. So that was actually a clapback video. But I did have those same valid questions. So they stopped me from asking those questions in the group. So I went to YouTube, made my own video and asked the same questions, and they couldn't, you know, couldn't stop my clock like that. Much against their chagrin. They still haven't been able to answer those questions. And if y'all been keeping up with colonizer to chiefs, y'all know exactly what I mean when I say so. Other than that, everything is good. We're going to get right to it. I'm going to pass the mic around. Y'all go ahead and do what you do. Let's talk. I know Cousin Kenny and Nikki have, Nikki Sunflower have a presentation, right? You guys got some slides. Y'all already know. Y'all can get to it. I'll definitely, if you need any assistance, Nikki, you know how to do the screen share, do you? You, Kenny? If you're on the laptop, you certainly will be able to do it. If you look where it says share screen, and you find out which window or tab you'd like to use or whatever, and then share it.
Is it near the bottom? Because I'm kind of trying to look for it now.
Yes, yes. Much like Zoom, but just a little different interface. The same way you would screen share there. It's a button. I think it says present.
Okay, can you guys see it?
Coming up. Yes, we can.
I can see it.
Okay. Come on, Gapo, everybody. My name is Kenneth Brown, and me and cousin Nikki will be doing a presentation on the Civil Rights Act of 1968. This was created by the Urban Indian Heritage Society, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Nikki, I wanted to start off with when you had asked a very important question in the meeting. What was that question you had asked us?
What did you learn in school about the Civil Rights Act of 1968?
So those of us that's on the stage that can talk, or the people that's in the chat, can actually comment and just let us know genuinely, what do you know about the Civil Rights Act? What was like the biggest hype about it that you were taught? And then we're going to just break it on down and get into it after we see everybody's points of views. And hopefully we get to give you guys a clear understanding of what the movement really was about and who is actually benefiting from those rights that our ancestors fought for. Because it's all a blur when we kind of think about it. What did we really learn about it in school? And us as educators, we feel like this is very unfair to the people because this is something that we need as a people every day. Nikki, you care to share what you learned when you were in school?
Well, I learned that it was a lot of rioting going on and people had signs about being Negroes. but it just really didn't make sense to me. I was confused, and it didn't really correlate, because if at home my mother is telling me I'm Cherokee, and at school they're showing us Negroes, there was a disconnect. I really didn't understand. I didn't even equate that what Martin Luther King and all these other people that we learn about during the year at school was equating, that it was the same project. So there was definitely a disconnect for me.
Yeah, same here for me. For me, what I remember when I was in school, they talked about the boycotts. Um, they did talk about the riots. They never really touched too much on the riots, and that was it. Like, it was really a blur to me. Like, I really did not start learning this stuff until I became an adult. And honestly, when Phoenix mentioned it, like, I think it was about 6, 7 years back, and I started realizing, like, this is stuff that we do have rights to. And it's like, I didn't understand how to use these rights, what these rights was for, and they're constantly violating them. When we going through these slides, everybody will see we got violated on almost every single one of these rights. And I would like to mention that the civil right, the Fair Housing Act was so heavy that I didn't even include all of that into this, because that has to be saved for another day. Because that one had so many pages of things that they were not supposed to be doing towards us, and that should be saved for another day. And also, within the month of April, that is also the Fair Housing Act, like, anniversary. Like, that's like a day, I guess, that they celebrate, that I didn't know there was a national day. The Fair Housing Act was in April. How coincidental is that? Is that the Civil Rights Act was passed in April? So these are things that they throw in our face that we really just don't see. But let's get to it.
They actually disguised it under the Fair Housing Act. It is Indian Civil Rights, Public Law 90284. What they did is so that they teach all the so-called Black lawyers, right, and other lawyers, obviously, non-Indian lawyers, and people who would possibly, more than likely, identify as Black, but very well may be of Indigenous ancestry. And I know from being a criminal justice major, I know for sure that there's a disconnect because you have no way of inserting yourself inside of the narrative. Okay. Also, so they switch a rule and they call it the Fair Housing Act. So this is why when you ask any civil rights attorney if they heard about the Civil Rights Act, they think the Fair Housing Act, right? And they'll take you to Title 42, not Public Law 90284, Title 1, Title 2, which is Rights of Indians, on purpose, and that's codified in Title 25. So even the United States and Senate and legislation has been duplicitous in how the American Indian is received as a result of enforcing the Civil Rights Act. And then let's keep it real. People have not used it. I had no choice. I did. But this has been stashed away from people on both ends. So you have people that say there's nothing there to protect you, and there really was. And then on the other hand, you have the way they present this as if the Fair Housing Act, which I am sure is going to take you right to Title 42. It's not going to take you to Indian civil rights. Just wanted to make sure we make that clear. You can't have compound matters. So if you have a bill to straighten out the affairs of the buffalo and the law gets passed, you cannot include, well, we want to save the manatees and the beluga whales also. So there's single subject matter here in the United States, rights of Indians all the way down to and beyond Fair Housing Act is about the American Indian. also called Negro.
And you could find this, the Civil Rights Act of 1968. You could find it online from us.gov. They actually have the full document there.
No, I'm gonna drop the original one, because when you
Okay.
go to that one, you're gonna get the one that's from like 2014 edition, like something that was updated,
Right.
and it's not the same. You want the old 1968, the actual GPO office copy. Hold on, I'll provide that too.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I had to make sure I saved it because I noticed that it kept changing.
So we're going to go through the titles, the different titles of the 1968 Act, the Civil Rights Act. So Title I is basically interference with federally protected activities. And within that section, they're basically saying that they cannot interfere with particular rights that we have as Indians, as far as like fair housing, the same things that they were protesting for in that time period, um, being segregated from everybody, being equally protected from law enforcement. Um, there was a number of things. Phoenix, do you mind chiming in on that? The interference with federally protected activities that's under this title.
Hold on.
Can I add something,
The
Kenny?
interference with federally protected activities that's under this title.
Can I add?
Hold on.
Can I add something?
Okay, there's an echo and a repeat.
Hello?
One second. I think that was Sally.
Yes, you could go, Celestine.
Is she still there?
I'm here. I just wasn't sure. I have a couple of devices going on at the same time. I was going to say interference with federally protected activities. Would that be something like when the people were protesting and, they had their signs and everything like that, and then the fire department and stuff like that came with the water hose and tried to get stop the people from protesting? Would that be considered
Exactly.
that?
Absolutely, busting
You're
the whole
right.
upside their head.
Because what that was going against was the freedom. So within the Civil Rights Act, you also have the Constitution. And under that, you have the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, the freedom of assembly. These are the things that we were getting violated on when, like you, that was a prime example of what you explained, Celestine, that when our people was protesting, it was a peaceful protest. So they shouldn't have been coming with the force of spraying them or chasing them with dogs. People really got injured and hurt doing this. A lot of people got put in prison, in jail for this. This is why they fought for that. And that's why that particularly is in the statute of that for that particular reason.
Now, do you guys recall at any point Native Americans like Tom Ackland involved in any of the riots, or do you think that he was the one getting bust upside his head while they was, exercising their free rights to protest and stuff like that? What about some of those tribes in Louisiana that brand new tribes that were created by Tom? Do you think that they had these same experiences?
No, I highly doubt that because a lot of the images that we found, it had nothing to do with anybody else but the Negroes of America.
What about the people in Standing Rock? You think those guys was getting busted upside their head or had a hard time leaving the reservation to go and get a hotel room, or they were discriminated against, couldn't get in Woolworth? You think that they were the ones people having a hard time?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
What I have been able to see was you do have those like Bernie Sanders, who has a history of being on the civil rights front line during that particular time. You also do have those cases like Schwerner and Goodman, who lost their lives being lynched in the South. And, so you do have those people who were quote unquote allies during the civil rights movement. However, what you also have is you have specifically the Porch Creek Indians of Alabama, who specifically reached out to Dr. Martin Luther King to assist them in getting equal rights for the Porch Creek Indians. So they reached out to Dr. King, and he came and he spoke on behalf of those Creek Indians of Alabama. The irony of it all is that you have Rosa Parks, who is of that specific lineage. And when those Porch Creek Indians got their civil rights, when they got their freedoms and got their opportunities to go to school, they were the first people who ignored the Black people, the Black Indians, the people who were there on the front line taking the blows for them. They're making billions of dollars right now, and they're doing absolutely nothing in helping those who look like us, who are of the Muskogee Creek lineage.
Thank you for that, Cousin Ish. We got DT in the building. We're having it. DT just left the building. Pretty sure he'll be back, but it's definitely good to see him. Definitely good to see him.
So on this slide, you see a couple of images of the people, what was happening to our people, and this is what the particular right was for. You see people were getting hosed. You see Gloria with the putting her hand against the gun because they were pointing a gun at Gloria. And you got to remember, this is in the 1960s, 50s, and 60s. Like, so to even try to put a gun at a woman at that time period was, why are you guys doing that? That was insane. Like, these people really risked their lives and had a voice, was using their voice for us, for the generations to come forward, to be able to speak their piece. So, Nikki, you would like to read the next title, Title 2, which is the rights of Indians?
Title 2, Rights of Indians, Section 202. Can you guys hear me? Because I was hearing that it was going in and out. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
1. All right. 1. Right to self-govern. 2. Freedom to practice religion, expression, free speech, assembly peacefully, and petition for redress and grievances.
So this is the same thing like what we're still fighting for today. When we try to petition or try to do anything of like freedom of speech, you guys will see movements like BLM, and it gets like crowded out by the news and the media, and you never really get the focal like get down to the point of what's really going on. They just kind of like it while the story goes away a few weeks later, and then we don't even have the right to really self-govern ourselves. Anybody else want to chime in on those two categories?
I think it's more of a matter of them presenting the idea that we don't have a right to self-govern. We absolutely do. Because now we have to
Exactly.
present the case where people made distractions from this law that was actually would have been completely beneficial to people of color, irrespective of them even being Indian for that matter, especially the way that they've changed it throughout the years. And that would extend to all different communities that are now attached to this, including the Asian community, right? But there was all sorts of things that people, again, so even teaching so-called Black lawyers, they go straight to the Title 42, which is discrimination predominantly in workplace. Like it's codified a little different. It's not the same as rights of Indians. So they have Native Americans under the rights of Indians, the Negroes, right? And then they kind of have the Negroes wherever they fit in, as long as they're under one of those other political umbrellas. It's just the damnedest thing.
You're absolutely right, because they do give us the fake illusion that we can't self-govern, but the reality is we can.
That is exactly what we're supposed to do. Anybody, not even just Indians, just groups of people, political bodies, families have to self-govern.
So before we go to the next slide, I want to read what an Indian tribe is. So this is in section 201. Indian tribe means any tribe, band, or other group of Indians subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and recognized as possessing powers of self-government.
What does self-government mean? Do they have a definition for that?
Yes. Powers of self-government means and includes all the governmental powers possessed by an Indian tribe, executive, legislative, and judicial, and in all other office, body, and tribunes by and through which they are executed, including courts of Indian offenses, and means the inherent power of Indian tribes, hereby recognized and affirmed to exercise criminal jurisdiction over all Indians.
They should have been locking them up, right? And it would mean the state Indians, because the other folks were on reservations and would have all of this sovereignty, no?
Correct.
So, Title 3, Model Code Governing Courts of Indian Offenses, Section 301. The tribal government is responsible for maintaining public safety within its territorial jurisdiction of the Indian tribe.
Title 4, Jurisdiction over Criminal and Civil Actions. Section 401, Assumption by the State of Criminal Jurisdiction. Section 402, Assumption by State of Civil Jurisdiction. Section 403, Retrocession of Jurisdiction by State. Section 404, consent to amend state laws. Title 6, Employment of Legal Counsel. Section 601, Approval. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, if any application made by an Indian, Indian tribe, Indian council, or any band or group of Indians under law requiring the approval of the Secretary of the Interior or the Commission of Indian Affairs of contracts or agreements relating to the employment of legal counsel, including the choice of the counsel and the fixing of fees, by any such Indians, tribe, council, band, or group is neither granted nor denied within 90 days following the making of such application, such approval shall be deemed to have been granted. That was loaded, y'all.
That one was packed with a lot of information.
So the next slide is a picture. And the next slide is
That's Fannie Lou Hamer.
of Fannie Lou Hamer. Yeah. Would you like to go into that, Miss Celestine?
I just know who she is. I'm not sure. I can't answer that question.
Well, Fannie Lou Hamer was one of the she was one of the people from Mississippi, and she was speaking out about because she was a sharecropper, and she was a lot of people in Mississippi was being done really wrong about how much they got paid from their crops, and they had to pay a certain amount of fee to people that they were sharing their land with. And mind you, the land was theirs, and they were sharing it with other people that was forcing them off of their lands. So this is a picture of her when she was speaking out against the wrongdoings of her and the people of Mississippi. So now we're at Title 7, Materials Relating to Constitutional Rights of Indians. Number 1, the Secretary of Interior is responsible to have documents entitled Indian Affairs, Laws, and Treaties. Therefore, revised and extended to include all treaties, laws, executive orders, and regulations relating to Indian affairs in force on September 1st, 1967, and to have such revised document printed at the government printing office. Number 2, have revised and republished the treaties entitled Federal Indian Law. Number 3, have prepared, to the extent determined by the Secretary of the Interior to be feasible and accurate, compilation of the official opinions published and unpublished of the Solicitor of the Department of the Interior relating to Indian affairs rendered by the solicitor prior to September 1st, 1967, and to have such complications printed as a government publication at the government printing office. So yeah, this is again them enforcing their rights and having it written down on document, on a legal document, that they cannot go against them or leave them out and have to remember the treaties that they had with their ancestors, with their forefathers. This is something that everyone forefathers have signed and come up on to agreement with. And this is now it is a federal law that they have to abide by, which they still violate in a lot of situations when you look at the news, that they still violate today. Title 8 is the fair housing. And like I said, it's so much impacted within the Fair Housing Act. I don't really want to just unpack it all within tonight. But Celestine or somebody, would you guys want to chime in and talk in about the fair housing? Because there's a lot of things going on with fair housing right now. And I think I seen an article today in Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia, that where they're finally acknowledging the fact that we have a housing crisis right now as we speak. And that's what's going on across the whole nation. The very thing that our ancestors fought for, we're kind of getting pushed out, but in a different, it's kind of like in a different way, but everybody don't remember these laws, that's these statutes that they cannot deny.
Yeah, rents are going up, so people are being phased out. A lot of people lost jobs and stuff during the pandemic and stuff. So, and a lot of people don't know their rights. And when you go through these documents, I haven't even read the whole thing, but I know when you go through these documents and stuff, you begin to see some of the things that they are violating us for. Do you want me to read the caption, Kenny?
Yeah, you could go ahead.
Okay, one second. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. The federal fair housing legislation, fair and equitable treatment in housing and real estate transaction is a right by law. The Fair Housing Act was passed on April 11th, 1969. Um, it shall be unlawful because of it's unlawful for them to discriminate you because of your race, because of any disability, if you're male or female, because of your religious practices and things of that nature. So all of those things are considered uh, things that they're not supposed to violate you on. You can continue, Kenny.
And also there is so if like you read down a little further, it was basically saying that they cannot, the choices of a person by word or conduct in connection with seeking, negotiating for buying it or renting as a dwelling so as to perpetrate or tend to perpetrate segregated housing patterns or to discourage or obstruct choices in a community, neighborhood, or development. So that goes into gentrification that's happening now. This is directly going against what I just read, because they cannot come into target a particular neighborhood and basically get you put fear into you that you can't even buy this particular house or rent from this particular area, because now they didn't upcharge it so high that the income does not match the cost of the actual house. And that's the biggest game that they're running right now today. That law was not just about us renting, it was also about us buying real estate as well. And I see that somebody put in the chat that they're trying to get rid of the Section 8 program. This law will be the very reason why they cannot get rid of it. They cannot get rid of the Section 8 program.
But they make it very difficult. I was just typing in the chat that people have died waiting on their Section 8 number to be called. I know that for a fact.
And that is true. That is very true. And then that leads into prevention of intimidation of fair housing cases, which is Title IX. That goes into back into they're not supposed to be preventing us from buying homes or buying up so much so they can control the narrative of the community. So with gentrification, what they do is they get a special funding through HUD Section 3. They get this special funding and then they redevelop the neighborhood. Now, once they successfully redeveloped the neighborhood, they successfully hired a quote unquote Negro, which is an American Indian. And because we're a part of the community and they have someone within the business, and now that this community has been upgraded, they're now able to raise the price and the cost of that particular neighborhood. So now that they're able to open up multiple businesses and buildings and rental properties, because they do it through housing development when they're redeveloping the particular neighborhood. And that's how they do the prevention. They start intimidating us in specific neighborhoods. That's why now you'll see a lot of people from the major cities are coming back down south because we can no longer afford living in the major cities. Like me, I left Los Angeles and I was born and raised there. That's all I knew. But I could no longer afford to live there no more because they're now pushing everybody out, bringing the other people in, and now for that, which is forcing me to go back to where my ancestors came from. And it's happening all over the nation. Now, Title 10, Civil Obedience, Section 1001. This title may be cited as the Civil Obedience Act of 1968, criminal penalties of acts committed in civil disorders. Section 1002, A amends Title 18 United States Code by inserting a new Chapter 12, Civil Disorders. Section B amends the table of contents to part crimes of Title 18 United States Code. If you guys are taking a look at this image, all of the other titles are put into place so we would not be able to burn this city down no more. So if we break the civil obedience, it's basically saying that we broke like the treaty, basically. Because I feel like the Civil Rights Act, and I don't know if you could correct me if I'm wrong, Phoenix, but the Civil Rights Act was like a newer version of a treaty. And it was just more universal, not just one particular tribe. Because at that point, everybody had been mixed up, moved around, no longer on reservations. So when Dr. King passed away, was killed, we were burning the cities down. And it became dangerous for everybody because if we burned everything down, nobody would have nothing. And they don't want us burning down their businesses, their banks, their homes, because where are they going to go at that point? So in order for us to not do that, they signed the Civil Rights Act. And they made sure they included that we would be obedient and not tear up the city.
And I think, Kenny, too, the Civil Rights Act, it also includes some of the Bill of Rights, if I'm not mistaken, in addition to the Constitution.
Yes, it does.
How do y'all feel that slide right there? You see anybody that look like they, I don't know, you see any feathers? You see any war bonnets? Y'all see any war bonnets?
Nope.
Some folks in there?
No, I see suits and ties.
And pale faces.
And Negroes.
Yeah.
That's what I see. Let's see if we can get let me get the video.
Yeah, and a few Negroes.
And Robert F. Kennedy is there as well, to the far left. I believe he was the Attorney General at that time. And of course, that's to the right is Lyndon B Johnson with Dr. King conversing.
It looks as if they're all fighting for his endorsement of the bill.
There was none of that was happening. This is actually before he died. This picture of King with him in it would have had to have been the voters' registration. King was present for that. So this slide here on the this right side portion of the slide, can you bring that back? Thank you. The one on the right side would be King at the 1964 signing of the voter registration Civil Rights Act, because he's dead when this happens.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
So this is him and hold on one second. I'll get him and Lyndon B Johnson.
While Phoenix is doing that, we want to welcome everybody to the to YouTube, to our channel. Please make sure you share and like the video out with your friends and your followers.
Of their race. In the Civil Rights Act of 1965, we affirmed through law for every citizen in this land the most basic.
There we go.
Even while President Johnson talked to Chancellor Klaus about America's responsibility in a time of crisis and challenge, word came from Capitol Hill that Congress had passed and sent to the White House the Civil Rights Act of 1968. Included in the measure was a landmark open housing bill, which, when fully effective, would forbid discrimination in approximately 80% of all housing offered for rent or for sale.
I'm gonna bring it back so I can see them faces one more again.
When fully effective, would forbid discrimination in approximately 80% of all housing offered for rent or for sale in the United States.
I do not exaggerate when I say that the proudest moments of my presidency have been times such as this, when I have signed into law the promises of a century. I shall never forget that it is more than 100 years ago when Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation.
Okay, now I'm gonna stop there. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation, right, to free slaves. So this doesn't have anything to do with the slaves that were in any of the 5 civilized tribes. Do we agree on that? What you think about that? It can't possibly. Who was getting emancipated? And what's the relevance to him bringing up this 100 years prior experience for who? The American Indian, aka the Negro. Here we go again.
But it was a proclamation. It was not a fact. And in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we affirmed through law that men equal under God are also equal when they seek a job, when they go to get a meal in a restaurant, or when they seek lodging for the night in any state in the Union. And now the Negro families no longer suffer the humiliation.
Who? Wait a minute.
The Negro families.
Okay.
Being turned away because of their race. In the Civil Rights Act of 1965, we affirmed through law.
Are they going to confuse the people in Standing Rock for Negro? Were they the ones called Negro? Were they the ones discriminated against since 1865, the proclamation, which proved that it was not a fact of law that they were safe? Okay, hold on.
For every citizen in this land, the most basic right of democracy, the right of a citizen to vote in an election in his.
Wait a minute. Didn't they get the right to vote? Hold on. In 1870, the Indians couldn't vote, but these tribes, federally recognized tribes, was able to vote, right? As of 1924, weren't they? So who's he talking about? That previous slide that you guys had was Martin Luther King at that voters registration. And at the time in 1964, with that particular Civil Rights Act, right after the Negro was able to vote, the Immigration Act of 1965 came and they brought over a boatload of Africans, for real, for real.
This country. In the 5 states where the act had its greater impact, Negro voter registration has already more than doubled. Now with this bill, the voice of justice speaks again. It proclaims that fair housing for all human beings who live in this country is now a part of the American way of life. We all know that the roots of injustice run deep, but violence cannot redress a solitary wrong or remedy a single unfairness.
They go Sitting Bull. Yes,
And we
Geronimo?
just must put our shoulders together and put a stop to both. The time is here. Action must be now.
Where they at? Oh, where they at? Where they at? Y'all seen them in the okay. I didn't see anybody that looks like any of these people that are saying we're not the Indians. I found
didn't see
very
it either.
That's why I love that video. And just for clarification, you have your Civil Rights Act. The first one is 1866. If you haven't read it, you should familiarize yourself with it. It's in conjunction the same year as the Freedmen's Act. Separate act, but the same year. Then you also, and this is also the same year of the treaties, right? So it's talking about the state Indians. Now think about this. In 1865, 66, 7, 8, 9, there are still states that are not a part of the United States, right? They separated. Georgia wasn't added back to the United States until 1870, right? Tennessee being the first state added back because they had more Union activity in counties, and they were easily able to cross over due to half of the family being Confederates and the other half of their families being president of the United States and governor of this, that, and the other place, even in the freed states as well, because we know that they all tied in together. And it seems like they all meet up in Louisiana to just get downright criminal and shit. But so now you have the instance where people of color, the American Indian Negro, there's no federal protection. Now you got Jim Crow, right? So Jim Crow is happening after 1866 Civil Rights Act is passed, completely ignored, never enforced. Then you have the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which was a voters registration bill that was passed that allowed people to take off the restrictions of them voting. Then in 1968, you have Indian civil rights. So there's several civil rights acts that people need to be aware of, not just this one.
So what's been posted in the chat is also about 1924 year that Cousin Phoenix Moon was talking about. The Snyder Act, if you just type in, when did Native Americans get the right to vote? It'll tell you that the Snyder Act of 1924 admitted Native Americans born in the U.S. to full U.S. citizenship. Through the 15th Amendment passed in 1870, granted all U.S. citizens the right to vote, regardless of race. It wasn't until the Snyder Act that Native Americans could enjoy the rights granted by this amendment. So if Native Americans were granted the right to vote in 1924, how then is the Civil Rights Act pertaining to them? That's the question. It isn't pertaining to them because they were already voting in 1924.
And even in that instance, that would mean that the Native Americans still had rights before the American Indian did. Hot damn. So who's left? And then, of course, after King is assassinated, you have Black Power, you have Kwanzaa, you have Angela Davis, you have all of this stuff that starts in the Bay Area and seems to permeate Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, and saturated down to Atlanta. Of course, Texas. There was a point where I've seen people in Baton Rouge. I've seen old documentaries in Baton Rouge where they're kicking people out. They're kicking out the nigga hijackers, carpetbaggers, right? They putting them out. So certain places were able to get rid of them and hold them off for as long as they can. And then some people, you know, they got taken over. There was Elijah Muhammad and all these other influences. There was so much stuff going on. People forgot about their civic engagement, absolutely about their political affairs. They left the Republican Party. They went Democrat, and they've been pinched, popped, shot, dropped, chopped, stopped ever since. So I want to say, you heard you got Indian in your family. Where did the Indian go? Ask them. Where did the Indian go? I'm going to tell you what. You might want to read through the actual law. I did provide it in the chat. And it's the old one, the old Xerox copy, right, with the flaws on it and stuff. And that's just the one from 1968. So it's a good deal. Y'all definitely check that out. I'm glad y'all pulled up with us. I want to say give Gator a happy shout out. Everybody in the chat, give Gator a happy birthday shout out. We finna head on out of here. Definitely glad y'all pulled up. Drop a happy birthday, Gator, in the chat, y'all. One time. There you go. That's that happy birthday, Gator. All right, y'all beautiful ones. Y'all got any closing words? Y'all want to say something to the people before we pull out?
I just want to say thank you for everybody pulling up, listening in, getting the information. And thank you, Phoenix, for elaborating with the presentation. And I want to say I love everybody that's in the chat, that's watching, and the fam that's up here.
Yes, Cousin Kenny, thank you so much, you and Nikki, for the presentation. I appreciate y'all. Cousin Ish for pulling up. Thank you so much. Sun Spirit, Latasha, always love. Gator baby, Happy New Year. We ain't hear from DT. You there, sir? DT in the building, y'all.
I'm here. I pulled up late and y'all was smashing. So I was just listening, taking it in. But
I'm gonna
you know
need
what I'm
some.
saying?
We're gonna need
great.
some time from you, sir. Say, Uncle Damon, we're gonna need some time. Tell Uncle Damon.
Yeah,
It's
it's
gonna
like
free
you
up.
don't
It's
love
gonna
us
free
no
up.
more, Damien.
Say,
Come
Uncle
on
Damon,
down. You know better.
Nah, you've been
Y'all know better than that.
working.
He's a hard-working man.
Yes, a
I
hard-working
know.
man.
You sure
That's
are.
why I don't stress it, because I'm like, Damon at work. I ain't even gonna mess with him. He
Already
at
know.
work.
So appreciate you. But no, Damon, you gotta give us some time, sir.
It's coming up. I got something to drop soon. So when I get ready to drop that, we gonna hit that. We gonna hit that cruise control. I got you. It's coming.
You already know. In the meantime, can you please let the people know where they can find you and Sister Aja? Let them know.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we about to drop some more episodes of Hot Almighty. Third season coming up. Actually, shoot, you said making time. Yeah, we need to make time to get you back on there, Phoenix. You know what I'm saying? But definitely, Hot Almighty, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, like wherever you can get a podcast, you gonna find it. So
That's
definitely,
right.
type it in, check us out.
Hot Almighty, y'all. Super dope podcast. Y'all ain't even ready. Don't listen to it on an empty stomach. That's all I'm going to say. You're going to be hungry and salivating, talking about those indigenous herbs, foods, recipes, all different sorts of things indigenous. Hot Almighty, y'all. Please check it out. It's on Spotify, Apple Music. Go and check it out. Hot Almighty. You cannot mess that up. You can't forget that. Hot Almighty, y'all. Hot for sure. Thank you for that,
Thank
Damon.
you.
All right,
No,
y'all.
thank you.
Jazz, again, happy birthday, beautiful one. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all in the hallways.
Peace and lot, key.
Peace and lot,
Peace and blessings.
Peace.
Peace and lot to
Peace and let you go.
Peace and lot, your key.